Well, we talked to CJ this morning, Schaefer, early, and he kind of was he was honest as usual, right? Doesn't really care how it sounds. Did talk about how he was pretty enamored with Oklahoma for a long time and didn't say anything. Yesterday at practice, he said he wasn't going to say anything really out loud until he talked to Coach Venables first. Did that thing play out real time different than you thought, even though you thought at the end it will be a Nebraska thing?
I guess no, because sort of the conversations I was having and hearing in the summer, the Nebraska end of it, I think they always liked where they were at with Christian. I think they felt like they kind of knew where he was at with everything else, and it was a matter of we just have to prove to him that this isn't the same Nebraska he's watched for, you know, 10 years. Like I think just based in, pretty heavily off of a conversation I had with someone who would know that recruitment really well. The feeling was Nebraska comes out and shows early in the season this isn't the same team. He's going to buy into that, and I think that's ultimately what happened. I mean, I think it's important that he was at both the first week game against UTEP and then the Colorado game. I think it's important that he has such a strong relationship with Tony White that's been forged over years now at this point, going back into December of 2022 when those guys met. And I think you were telling me about how they were just shooting hoops in the gym.
Yeah.
So like I think that a lot of time and effort had been put into Christian Jones. I think he knows that. And there's a lot of trust there with that coaching staff. I mean, it goes beyond just, I think, the general feeling that he likes where Nebraska's headed. I think that he trusts the coaches, in particular, Tony White, Rob Dvorak, and Matt Rhule, to get him to where he wants to go. And so, I'm maybe a little bit taken back that Oklahoma closed it as much as they did, but ultimately this ended up where I think most of us thought it was going to.
Shafe, as far as the other high-profile recruits that were on campus for Nebraska, was there anyone that really stood out to you in either their comments after the game or in a way that you think, hey, that really might have sealed the deal for them as well?
Yeah, I go to Dawson Merritt. I mean, I think this one's going to be kind of a fascinating recruitment too, because I think he's one of those guys who's going to speak glowingly of whichever program is on the phone with him. But I also think that Nebraska has a lot going for it in this recruitment. I mean, I think this is where his family wants him. It's closer to home. They'd be able to see him play while also, his dad coaching at the Chiefs with those home games. You'd have a little bit better opportunity for that. And I think the family would like to see him be a little bit closer than Alabama. I think he's pretty enamored, though, with the idea of playing for Alabama. So the more Nebraska can win and the more Nebraska shows that it is going to be part of a national college football conversation moving forward in the present tense and not the past tense, it's really going to help out. I just the comments that he made to me yesterday reflect somebody who is very intrigued by what's happening at Nebraska. And I think, again, it goes back to the same three with Christian Jones. I mean, these guys are linked. I think Nebraska would love to have both of them. I don't think they have to have both of them. I think getting Christian is huge for sort of filling out what was kind of the last sort of big need in the class. But adding both of them would make them, even stronger. And I think the relationship with Dawson, not Dawson, the relationship that they have with Dawson kind of starts with Tony White and Rob Dvorak, Terrence Knighton, and Matt Rhule. But then he was talking about how Marcus Satterfield and the offensive staff was coming over. He just feels really connected to this coaching staff. And again, I think if Nebraska continues to win, it's going to possibly take care of itself in that regard. And then Michael Terry, the third, the five-star wide receiver out of San Antonio, Mike Roach caught up with him, and he basically, put it out there. He thinks it's a Nebraska-Texas battle now. He thinks Oregon has been jumped here. Nebraska has really put themselves in a good position. The update was kind of funny because you have every other quote from everyone else is about that atmosphere, and it's like the best thing they've ever seen. Then you have Michael Terry, whose first initial quote was, it's a lot like my other visits to Nebraska. And I'm thinking to myself, well, this doesn't bode well. But apparently everything was really good, and that staff has done a really nice job recruiting Terry. So I think that they have a real chance there. I mean, it wouldn't it's conceivable they could end up with 3 of those big 4, Cortez Mills being the other. I think he's probably going to be the toughest to pull. There's a lot of reasons why he's going to Norman, Oklahoma.
So, Shafe, let me ask you something. Because considering it doesn't sound like we've learned our lesson yet with overreacting, apparently now McGuire's forgotten how to coach, even though a week ago we were talking about the young wide receivers and how he's turned the room around and this, that, and the other. You get the sense after the presser yesterday that he's as bad a coach as maybe our spheres of influence would lead you to believe? Because I think we're overreacting a little.
I think the vacuum of Nebraska can't do this and Nebraska can't do that. Well, they went and they won that game on Saturday, but then it wasn't that they won the game on Saturday. It's that they didn't look good enough in the second half. The offense didn't score. It's one of those. There's always got to be some level of conversation around here. So something had to fill the vacuum, and this week it feels like it's very much the wide receivers don't run good enough routes and don't block well enough. And Aaron Murray's breakdowns on YouTube have everybody concerned about what's happening at Nebraska, despite the fact that they lack general context like down and distance and time remaining, sometimes even reflecting the score of the game. But yeah, we want to do slow cut-ups of individual plays without context. I mean, it doesn't look good for Nebraska's wide receivers. Is that where were we going? Did I slow pitch that you lobbed right down the middle?
I was just getting ready to do the old slow toss.
Yeah.
Buddy Wackett. Hey, by the way, speaking of Buddy Wackett, the hallowed grounds known as the Discover's baseball field, man, Mike J. Schaefer is held in very high regard around that area. I didn't know you were the Justin Verlander of the Columbus Discoverers.
Until they put up my school record of most hits batsman during a single season. I don't know that I'm held in that high a regard around there.
Hey, Verlander had to brush guys off the plate.
Listen, you got to keep people honest.
I like the inside of the plate. It's not my fault that two-seamer runs inside.
Can't be hanging out over there with the elbow. You got to take care of it.
Hey, Shafe, can you snap? Because Coach Rhule is not particularly enamored with snapping the football on special teams.
No, I have never, despite my doppelganger effect of Mark Polini being another one that people felt like I look like. I've never played center. I've never snapped a football, so I don't think I can step in a pinch there and help out. It seems like it's more the frustrations with the long snapping issues, right? Like the speed of it and the general ball placement. Two of the more important things.
I'll say, what else is there?
Direction.
I do think that's something we take for granted, though.
Well, yeah. I mean, they had a veteran guy in Ortiz last year, and as a general fan, like, how often are you thinking about the Pittsburgh Steelers long snapper? Never. You're just assuming the ball is getting back to the punter and the punter is going to get it away, or the ball is going to get to the holder and the holder is going to get it down. I mean, we kind of autopilot these things, but that's why they're called special teams. And that's why this phase is really important. And Nebraska doesn't clean some of this stuff up. It will cost them a game. Like, they were bad on Saturday and it didn't matter because they were good enough in every other aspect. But man, I thought that kickoff that fell between 3 guys, I thought that was one of the most inexcusable things that we've seen in a long time.
We're talking to Mike Schaefer from Husker 24/7. Schaefer, I tried to make the argument that this is just about coming off of the Colorado game, kind of the perfect scenario for Nebraska in the sense that you get the big win, you show up in a big moment, but there's still a ton of teachable moments, and the chances of you getting a little bit too big for your britches seem relatively low. Am I onto something there? Am I smoking something there? How do you feel?
No, Michael Bruntz voiced this on Saturday after the game. He's like, it's kind of Matt Rhule's perfect game, right? Like, yep. You get the dominating performance that you wanted on your defense. You started off fast. You didn't really ever let up. And yet you walk out of that game thinking there's a lot of ways to get better for this Nebraska team. There's a lot of things to go work on. There's a lot of things that they're going to watch in the film room and think, man, we did not do that well enough and we have to play better football. And then on top of all of it, just a general idea that you can, in college football, no lead is safe. 28-0 against Colorado wasn't safe. Nebraska can't go into a shell. They're going to have to learn how to put teams away. I think, the way that he characterized it, I hadn't thought of it like that until he said it late Saturday night or early Sunday morning. Who even knows what time is anymore? And then, you kind of said it in a similar vein. There's a way to take a lot from that game, which Nebraska came and they played well. But, if you're Matt Rhule, playing well doesn't matter. And then also, it's in the rear view now. You move beyond Colorado. You have the opportunity to get better against Northern Iowa, and you've got an Illinois team waiting in 2 weeks that, isn't going to be intimidated by your environment and is going to come in and play grown man football. So you got to eliminate those mistakes because they're going to seize them.
Schaefer, are you surprised? Are you like, hey, that's what I thought at Nebraska's level of physicality when they as a team?
No, this is what I expected. I mean, I don't know that I'm any sort of, Matt Rhule at Baylor expert, but I watched a lot of Baylor in 2018 and 2019. Like they got after you. They were physical. They wanted to win in the trenches. And that's one of the reasons, when Matt Rhule got here and you look at what they did with their defensive line and having Terrence Knighton, I'm not surprised by any of it. I mean, it's always felt like that's been an emphasis everywhere he's been. And to me, it starts up front. And we saw that you had your essentially your nominal 4 starting defensive linemen all had sacks. They're all getting after it. They're all physically, ready to go. You didn't bring in Corey Campbell because he was your buddy. You brought him in to get these guys ready to try to get them to the league. In order to do that, they have to be physically ready, and then they have to take what they're learning there and bring it onto the field. And so, no, I mean, I think it's part of the mentality. I think it's part of the growth mindset. I think it's taken a little while to develop. But yeah, Nebraska looked at Saturday to me that they were going to be the aggressor the entire game. They weren't going to get outworked. They weren't going to be out physical. They weren't going to be intimidated. They weren't going to be talked down to. They were going to bring the fight, and they were going to answer whatever Colorado had. And I thought that was apparent from the opening kickoff, really all the way through the fourth quarter.
Schaefer, is there an individual that you haven't heard talked that much about over the last couple of days that you saw and go, hey, I thought this guy really played well on Saturday?
No, in large part because there's enough media conversation. It's hard for people to fall under the radar in this market, especially after a game like Saturday. I mean, I'll just reiterate a lot of the same guys that have already been discussed. I think it was Damon probably about a month ago that was talking up John Bullock and saying that, you felt like people were undervaluing what he was going to bring to the defense. I mean, he was phenomenal on Saturday. I don't mean this as a slight. Yeah, I don't mean this as a slight to Nick Henrich or Luke Reimer, but I don't think we're going to have to ask a whole lot of, what if Nebraska had one of those guys? I think John Bullock is sort of replaced that. Like he looked so good.
No slight at all.
But I don't mean it as a slight. I just mean like John Bullock is so much better than what I anticipated that he could be, and we saw the high end of that Saturday. Coming off the blitz, coming off the side on the 4th down, and then he seems like he's kind of an emotional leader for that team in some ways too.
Because he's
Colorado's sideline. Well, I see that's more of a slight than what I said. I'm not attacking a personality.
I mean, he is just he's just nasty.
He seems tenacious. I think
he gives. I mean, yeah, he's one of those. He's one of those blank your feelings kind of guys.
And so there's obviously him. And then I said it after week 1. I noticed him all over the field again. He had 3 hurries and a sack on Saturday. I mean, we are seeing by far the best version of MJ Sherman in college football that there has been.
The unsung hero.
I don't know. I don't know that we sort of were prepared for that. I mean, I think we expected Prince Umanmielen to kind of take over that job, and I don't think MJ Sherman's given it up anytime soon. I mean, he's been really, really good, and I don't know if it's just a year of learning pass moves from Terrence Knighton or what, or if he's just got his body down pat. It's just he's getting through there. And obviously UTEP, Colorado, we'll see what happens going forward, but he has sort of rewritten my expectations for him as well. So those are 2 guys coming out of Saturday that, again, it's not like no one else is saying this stuff.
Well,
but I was just really impressed.
you're only the second one. You and Lincoln Lance. Lincoln Lance was DMing me all game talking about MJ Sherman. And he's gotten very little run. I mean, it's not, Shafe, you're not quite on an island, but it's not like I hear his name come up a ton.
I mean, people should be saying it. He's been playing great football. I mean, you love to see that coming off of the edge there. And it just shows you how deep they are. You get that from MJ Sherman. You have Prince Umamiel and Willis McGahey's in for one play for Willis McGahey. And he's a disruptor. You've got James Williams. I mean, it's so impressive what they can throw at you from the outside. And then, oh, by the way, up the middle, you get a block Ty Robinson and Nash Hutmaker and Van Poppel and Elijah Judy and everyone else. They can come at you in waves.
I'm still not sure James Williams was offsides.
I don't think he was. He was like a yard and a half off the ball, and he didn't jump.
Was he more onside than TJ Watt on Sunday?
OMG. Wow. So the funny thing is Raheem went in to his presser saying how he was not going to let TJ Watt do that to them.
Yeah, well, I don't think you get to dictate to TJ Watt.
Watt did that to them.
I think TJ decides more what he's going to do to you.
Shafe, I'm glad you threw me in, since we're just throwing softballs to one another. I told Ravi I felt like Watt would be the only non-quarterback that could challenge Mahomes for the best player in the league.
I mean, his record, or the Steelers' record when he's on the field, is otherworldly. The problem is it just seems hard to keep him on the field for 17 games.
Yeah.
And he can only play one side of the ball. So that's the other problem with the Steelers.
Shafe, could I make an argument? I'm going to ignore the Steelers talk and go back to the thing I was talking
that's
about.
Good. That's fine.
Shafe, could I make the argument that the guy that we didn't talk enough about is Marquise Buford?
You can. He's also still maybe a guy that I have a question or two about, like what that ultimately looks like. And it's not like he's played bad by any means. I just am still adjusting to the idea of him as a corner. In the Big Ten, he's going to feel a little small compared to some of the physical wide receivers that you're going to get there. Are they going to be able to body him up? I mean, that's kind of what I want to see. The nice thing is, I don't know that Nebraska is going up against another set of wide receivers nearly as talented as what they just faced. And he did fine. But
until Ohio State.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of, hanging back a little bit on Marquise Buford. And it's not because I feel like he's played bad. I just, when you have Tommy Hill on one side, I just don't think teams are going to challenge him. So Marquise Buford not only has to be good, but he has to be good all the time because he's going to get the balls thrown his way.
Real quick, rapid fire in the last 60 seconds.
Yep.
I'm just gonna, over, under, about the same as you thought heading into the season. USC.
Better than I thought, for sure.
Iowa.
The same.
Illinois.
Closer to the same, but slightly better.
Penn State.
The same.
Ready? Oregon.
Worse. I mean, it's kind of a rough start.
Yeah. What bugs you about Oregon?
I wouldn't say bugs, but it's just, you expect dominance and it hasn't been there yet. And they haven't exactly. I mean, it's not like that was a great Boise State team that they played. I think Idaho's a game FCS team, but it feels like they've just been a little sleepy so far this year.
That's Mike Schaefer, Husker 24/7. Schaefer, we appreciate the time as always. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, have a good one.